The phone buzzes against the wooden desk. Again. A dull tremor that travels through the grain, up through the wrist, settling somewhere behind the eyes. The screen lights up, pale blue glow in the morning gray. A notification, then another. The muscle memory is already there, fingers reaching before the mind catches up. Outside, rain traces slow lines down the window, patient, unhurried. Each drop following the path of least resistance, merging with others, disappearing into the sill. But inside, everything splinters. 17 browser tabs open like accusatory fingers. An inbox that refreshed itself 3 minutes ago, already demanding to be checked again. A video paused mid-sentence, its red progress bar frozen at the 7-minute mark. Something about productivity, ironically. Half-read articles scattered across the screen like debris after a storm. The coffee's gone cold in its mug. When did that happen? There's a document open somewhere beneath all this. The real work. The thing that matters. But getting to it requires swimming through layers of static, each one promising something urgent, something unmissable, something that will only take a second. Just 1 second. And then another. And then the morning's gone. The shoulders carry it, this particular kind of weight. Not the weight of effort, but the weight of fracture. Of attention pulled in 17 directions until it isn't attention anymore, just a thin glaze spread across the surface of everything, connecting to nothing. The jaw clenches without permission. The breath shortens. Somewhere in the back of the skull, a low-grade exhaustion hums its constant song. This wasn't supposed to be the battle. The battle was supposed to be against the work itself. The hard thinking, the deep diving, the honest wrestling with ideas that don't come easily. But that battle never arrives. It can't. The enemy isn't resistance anymore. It's seduction. The gentle tyranny of everything that doesn't matter dressed up as everything that does. The phone buzzes again. A calendar reminder, a message. A news alert about something happening somewhere to someone. The hand moves toward it, stops, moves again, stops. In that pause, that half-second of hesitation, something else stirs. Not a thought exactly. More like the memory of a thought. A question someone asked once centuries ago in a language that's dead but somehow still breathing. A question so simple it's almost stupid, so obvious it's easy to miss entirely. The rain continues its slow work on the glass. The tabs glow their patient glow, and beneath it all, underneath the noise and the urgency and the endless fractured now, that question waits. The question comes from a man who wore purple and commanded legions. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, master of the known world, and yet in his private journals, the ones never meant for anyone else to read, he asked himself the same thing every morning. Is this necessary? Not is this urgent. Not is this interesting. Not even is this important. Necessary. The word has weight, has edges. It doesn't bend to accommodate comfort or habit or the fear of missing something. It simply stands there, immovable, asking to be answered honestly. The cursor blinks in the empty document. 1 flash per second. A metronome for work that isn't happening. The email tab pulses with a small red circle, 37 unread messages. 37 small fires, each one whispering that it might be the one that matters. But here's the trick they don't tell you. Urgency is a performance. It's theater. Real necessity doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. There's a texture to this realization. Like running your hand along a wall in the dark and finding the door frame. The shift from rough plaster to smooth wood, from chaos to structure. The Stoics understood something that the modern world has forgotten in its rush toward more. Freedom isn't about having infinite options. It's about knowing which ones to ignore. Picture Aurelius in his tent after the battles. Lamplight flickering against canvas walls. Reports stacked on his desk, military dispatches, political intrigues, requests from senators, complaints from provinces. All of it demanding his attention, all of it claiming to be essential. And him, sitting there with his stylus and wax tablet, asking that one question over and over until the pile sorted itself. Necessary, not necessary, necessary, not necessary. A filter, clean and sharp. The phone buzzes again. The hand doesn't move this time. Not because of willpower. Willpower is a muscle that tires. This is something else. This is the beginning of clarity. The understanding that every yes to the unnecessary is a no to something that might actually matter. The mathematics are brutal in their simplicity. Outside, the rain has steadied into a rhythm. No longer individual drops, but a continuous sound, like static turned into music. White noise. And maybe that's what most of modern life has become. A constant stream of white noise, each element indistinguishable from the next, all of it blending into a hum that feels like productivity but produces nothing. The Stoics had another word for this: phantasia, impressions. The raw data that hits the senses before the mind interprets it. A notification is just light and vibration. An email is just pixels arranged in patterns. None of it means anything until we grant it meaning. Until we say, yes, this is necessary, this deserves my attention, this gets a piece of the only resource I can never replenish. The document still waits, the real work. But between here and there, a new question emerges, sharper than the first. What if the problem isn't that we lack focus? What if we've simply been focusing on everything, which is the same as focusing on nothing? The hand reaches for the mouse, not toward the phone this time, but toward the tabs. One by one they close. Each click is a small severance, a deliberate amputation. The news site gone. The social feed paused mid-scroll gone. The video about productivity, still frozen at 7 minutes, gone. The sound is satisfying. A soft digital snap, like closing doors in a house with too many rooms. What remains? The document. The email minimized. The rain. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full. Dense with possibility. This is the space the Stoics talked about when they spoke of apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, that numb indifference, but freedom from the tyranny of external things. The calm that comes from knowing what you control and what you don't. You don't control the inbox. It will fill regardless, like water finding its level. You don't control the news cycle, spinning its endless catastrophes and triumphs in equal measure. You don't control the algorithm, learning your weaknesses better than you know them yourself, serving up exactly what will keep you scrolling, clicking, fragmenting. But this, the choice of where to place attention in the next 5 minutes, this is yours. Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher, put it plainly: some things are up to us and some things are not. The dichotomy of control. Simple enough to teach a child, difficult enough that most people spend their entire lives ignoring it. We pour our energy into the things we cannot control: other people's opinions, past mistakes, future uncertainties, and wonder why we feel powerless. Meanwhile, the one thing we actually govern, the one territory where we are absolute rulers, sits neglected. Our attention, our focus, the direction of our mind in this singular, unrepeatable moment. The document opens fully now. The cursor blinks in a sea of white, waiting, not demanding, not buzzing or pulsing or insisting, just available, ready for whatever comes next. And here's what the ancient texts won't tell you directly, but what they imply in every line. Deep work isn't a technique. It's not a hack or a system or an app that promises to block distractions for 25-minute intervals. Deep work is what happens naturally when you stop doing everything else. It's not addition, it's subtraction. Aggressive, relentless subtraction. The rain shifts pitch against the window. Heavier now. The kind of rain that makes the world contract, that turns the room into a vessel, sealed and separate from everything beyond these walls. There's a monastery quality to it. Monastic focus, that's what they call it sometimes. But the monks understood something crucial. They didn't build their focus through superhuman discipline. They built it through architecture, through walls, through rules that said no to 1,000 things so they could say yes to one thing completely. What are your walls? What structures have you built or failed to build around your attention? The phone sits face down now, silent, forgotten, not through willpower but through something simpler. It stopped being necessary. The first word appears on the screen, then another, not forced, not wrestled into place. They simply arrive one after the other, like the rain finding its path down the glass. This is what it feels like when the static clears, when the frequency finally locks in. The work isn't easier. That's the part they don't tell you when they talk about focus. The thinking is still hard. The sentences still resist. The ideas still need to be turned over, examined, rebuilt. But the exhaustion, that particular species of tiredness that comes from being everywhere and nowhere at once, that's gone. What remains is clean effort, honest friction, the kind of difficulty that produces something instead of just consuming you. Marcus Aurelius knew this feeling. In between the campaigns and the politics and the weight of empire, he found it. Not in some distant retreat or mountain sanctuary, but in the choosing. in the daily, unglamorous practice of asking that one question and actually listening to the answer. Is this necessary? And then, this is the part that matters, acting on what he heard, because the question is useless without the action. Wisdom that doesn't change behavior is just philosophy as decoration. Pretty, harmless, pointless. The document fills slowly, paragraph by paragraph, the kind of work that leaves a different kind of tired at the end, the tiredness of something built rather than something endured. Outside, the rain begins to ease, not stopping but softening. The light shifts from gray to a pale silver, afternoon arriving without announcement. The phone hasn't buzzed in 20 minutes, or maybe it has and it doesn't matter anymore. There's a difference between those two states, between the thing not happening and the thing happening without significance. The Stoics would say that's where freedom lies, not in controlling external events, but in controlling what those events mean to you. Here's what changes when you truly understand this. The world doesn't become quieter. The demands don't decrease. The inbox still fills. The notifications still arrive. The urgency still performs its theater. But you become something different, not harder, not more disciplined in that white-knuckled, unsustainable way, just clearer, more selective, more honest about what deserves the unrepeatable hours of your one life. The cursor blinks at the end of a completed thought. The work isn't finished, real work never is, but something has shifted. The attention that was scattered across 17 surfaces has gathered itself, returned home, found its center. Before the next thing begins, there's this, a breath, deep and slow, the kind that reaches the bottom of the lungs and reminds you that you're here, alive, capable of choosing. And in that breath, the question waits, not as a burden, as a key. Is this necessary? 3 words, ancient and immediate, simple enough to remember in the chaos, sharp enough to cut through the noise, quiet enough that you have to stop, really stop, to hear the answer. The rain knows its path, the work knows its shape, and you know what matters now.